Welcome to the Every Night is Game Night preview series, the show where designers and publishers share their passion and answer critical questions about their Kickstarter projects. If you're on the fence about a pledge, this is the show for you.
Every Night is Game Night, episode 33, A Thief's Fortune with Konstantinos Kokkinis. Yo, my peoples, what's up? Welcome back to the Every Night is Game Night preview series. I'm your host, Jason. Thank you so much for joining us. I know we haven't done one of these preview series in a little while, not for lack of excellent projects, but we are definitely looking out for opportunities to bring excellent games to you. We have another one today. This is A Thief's Fortune, and we have the founder and CEO of Artipia Games here to talk about it, Konstantinos Kokkinis. Welcome to the show.
Hello, Jason. I'm glad to be here.
How did I do with the pronunciation of your last name? Is it Kokkinis or?
It's Kokkinis. It is pretty good, the pronunciation.
I know. I should probably have done a little bit of research before. I was close though. I tested myself.
Yeah.
All right. Cool. Thank you very much for joining the show on Sunday morning for me, afternoon for you. All these international podcasts are always interesting when it comes to scheduling. But let's get started. Let's talk about, well, first, this is a podcast about people, much more so than about the games. You are the founder and CEO of Artipia Games. Maybe you can tell that story of how that all came to be.
Sure. It all started in 2011. Back then I designed a game called Drumroll. And I've been attending the Essen Fair in the Spiel Fair in Essen, Germany, for quite a while. So I was at some point very excited to join as an exhibitor. And I had just designed the game, Drumroll. So it was an opportunity for me to see what this game could do in the market. So I started the company. And that was my first publication. And from that point on until today, we've been trying to provide the market with several nice titles. I think we've done pretty good so far. And of course, there's always room for improvement. And, we always have more games to create.
Mm-hmm. Oh, Artipia has made some of my personal favorites. You guys made The Pursuit of Happiness, which was this really cool Euro take on the game of life, I suppose is the tagline of that one. Project Elite was a Kickstarter by you guys, which is this kind of crazy real-time dice rolling, killing a lot of folks type game. So definitely Artipia has been, you've been making a lot of good games and a lot of successful Kickstarters. We will talk about the Kickstarter end of it, of A Thief's Fortune, in a little bit. But this is the latest one, A Thief's Fortune. So I think we're ready. Let's dive into talking about the game. Go ahead and give us a executive summary of A Thief's Fortune, kind of the elevator pitch, and then we can dive in and see what we're really getting.
Okay. Well, A Thief's Fortune is a game in which we visit the kingdom of Nabara. Our hero is a very talented thief. Who decides to go break into the palace, visit the treasure rooms, and take as much loot as he can from there. While doing so, he comes across a very alluring chest that he opens up, and inside he finds a magical item, which is a very mystical hourglass. At the moment he touches that hourglass, He's empowered with the ability to be able to see glimpses of his own future, and based on the decision he makes, he can see that future changing. So he begins an attempt to get as much treasure from the palace as possible, while at the same time being chased by everyone because as soon as the palace guards realize that the magical item is gone, everyone is trying to find out who stole it. So the big thing of the game is that hero is actually every player. Every player represents a different aspect of it's a potential future of that same character. So every player is the same person.
We're playing alternate timelines over here, I guess.
Exactly. And what we are trying to do is determine that hero is trying through us to determine which is the ideal plan of escape. And this is what we are trying to do, which fits very nicely with the mechanics of the game. The main mechanics are card drafting and resource management.
I was actually going to point that out because what you're describing is this kind of like almost adventure or storytelling type game, and then bang, here is a pure card drafter.
Yeah, and the card drafting mechanism is quite unique here. We've developed a different style of card drafting where you actually don't pass your entire hand to the next player after choosing what you want to do, but instead you keep part of it, so it creates a unique feeling. The nice part in this one is that since we are before we begin drafting, we draw cards from specific decks, and that fits very nicely with the theme because all the decisions have been made, but what remains to be determined is which of us will perform those decisions, which alternate timeline of this person will perform them.
Well, let's get to the mechanisms first, 'cause I think you have a couple of how-to videos, including from our friend Slicker Drips and a couple of other people out there. So you mentioned before that the card drafting, you get all the cards in your hand, but you don't pass all of them. Is it a case where you pass a few and then you keep a couple and then you kind of put them in different spots like past, present, or future?
In the game we have 3 main decks of cards. These are separated thematically into locations, events, and characters you encounter. And at the beginning of the round, each player will draw 5 cards in any composition they want, as long as they collect at least 1 card from every deck. And as soon as this is done, the process is that you keep a card, you play it, and then you pass. You always pass cards to the remaining player, keeping only 2 for yourself. Okay. This reaches a point where you will eventually get 2 cards, and these last 2 cards are both played by you. One is added to your gameplay area as normal, and the other one is discarded to give you a small favor that is indicated on the bottom of each card.
Oh, okay, got it. So that's where the storytelling aspect comes in the sense that you have these different like locations and everything. So like this thief is going to this location and getting favor with these people. That version of the thief is going to this other location and getting favor with these other people. And that's kind of how you do the time, like the multiple universe things, right?
Exactly. Each type of card, location, character, and event is also different in the way its ability works. So, for example, all locations will provide you with ongoing abilities, while characters will provide you with an ability that can be activated once per round. And finally, the events can only be performed once, and then they are discarded, which means they actually go in your past, and I will explain this process shortly. The way it mainly works is that after drafting these cards and choosing which ones you want to play with, these cards are placed in an area in front of you that is represents your future. So all these events, characters, and locations haven't yet been brought to your present. You haven't yet done those things. You haven't interacted with those people yet. While in your future, each card also shows some loot on it, which is represented by various items like gems and lamps and swords, which are the three basic resources. It could also contain time or danger. So all these resources may be represented on a card, and as soon as you choose this card and place it in the area called future, you also add the resources on it. So this game is also quite different in this aspect, that in most games of this type, what you do is you mainly build your cards, and thus they require resources from you. In this game, you are also provided with these resources from each card. Mm-hmm. And the tricky part is that as soon as one of these cards no longer holds any resources, it is automatically transferred to your present. So that is the point where you encounter the card.
It kind of goes with the idea of the story that you're trying to tell, right? So like in a lot of these drafting games, you think, of course, Seven Wonders, but there's a couple of the others. You are building like structures, or you're building a city, or you're building something, right? There's actually a physical thing that you're meant to represent. Like this one, you're telling a story, and you're meeting different characters, and you're going to different locations, and one knows when they go away, they kind of go away, and they become part of a chapter in your book, so to speak. So like you start off whoever it is will give you some stuff. It's like, here, have some precious jewels and everything. And then you interact, and then that becomes a part of your past, and you move on to the next thing. So you've kind of found a way mechanically to tell a pretty neat, interesting story.
That is correct. The main concept behind the cards is that while a card is in your future, it provides you with resources. When it is moved to your present, it provides you with an ability you can perform. And then when they go to your past, because at some point you need to move the cards to your past, as your present is limited, has limited space. So you cannot keep an infinite number of cards in your present. You can only interact with specific people at any given moment. You can operate at specific locations at any given moment. So everything else just moves to your past, which is the area they will provide you with an additional fortune points, which is what we play for in this game. So each area makes a different use of the card. And the main thing you try to do is build an engine through all these combinations of abilities, which also differs from other games in the logic that this is not a permanent engine. You need to always adapt to the new cards coming in and be ready to work without the abilities of the cards that are going out of your present. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it all for the kind of sense of keeping the story going. What I think kind of stands out about this game and I think there's another game that's coming out from Stronghold called Paper Tales, which does a similar thing, or approaches a similar way, where it takes the card drafting, but it also emphasizes the storytelling. It's like, okay, we're not just going to do the card drafting thing anymore. We're going to try to tell a fun story. And it sounds like this game, at least that's the direction in which you guys are going.
Yeah, each card is tailored to fit the theme and to tell a small part of the story. Players also have an additional area in the middle of the table that is called a common future, and that area also contains cards that players can take advantage of every round, and they are treated as if they still exist in everyone's future. So it also makes the feeling of the theme even stronger, because these are not yet determined cards that are not yet determined who will be taking advantage of them, who will be living those experiences.
Okay, so like so I'm going through. I almost imagine, like, I don't know. Have you ever played the video game Prince of Persia?
Actually, yes, but a long time ago.
Well, you used to go, like, you would play the game, and then you would kind of go down a certain route, and then you'd have to like rewind time or something like that, or you'd see, like, multiple options and everything. It's up to you to kind of pick which way you want to go. Sounds like, I mean, I know I'm kind of equating to Thief games or something like that, but it just feels very similar, and like you're trying to get us to think of the past and the present in this kind of like way in which it's fungible for us, and we're kind of moving forward for that, as opposed to just being this lockstep thing.
It's a game you certainly need to plan ahead and make the best of every situation. You cannot always depend on a long-term strategy. You need to adapt your plans every now and then. There is interaction in the game aside from the card drafting itself and the common feature I just described. There's also several cards that interact with others, but everything is kept at a rather peaceful level, because after all, it's the same person. So
I am glad you mentioned the level of interaction when it comes to Thief's Fortune, in terms of it's the same person, so it's not going to be this vicious thing, this cutthroat thing, which leads me to see that there is a solo mode that's possible for this. And I noticed that it's actually being implemented at this time. Is that correct?
Yes, we are developing the solo mode right now. The differences there are that you will have to remove a few cards from the card pool in order to be able to play the game. Those cards are basically the cards that directly interact with other players. There are very few, and from that point on, the game gives you some cards that include specific goals you need to achieve in each solo game. Like, for example, there are two different main ways to score points in the game. One is by moving cards to your past, and the other one is by doing all these combinations and actions that the abilities on each card provide you. And for example, a mission there would be a goal for you would be to gather a certain amount of fortune points in solo mode, but only using the points tracked on the game board. So that leads you to a specific strategic path, and you're trying to achieve goals through certain paths that the game leads you to.
So then you have these objectives, right? And the objectives remind me of the Pursuit of Happiness, another one of your games, where you have to achieve certain things. Like you have to be, you have to take this many projects or do whatever within the allotted time frame. So there's not necessarily like that active opposition, but the management of the game itself kind of lends itself towards, just you have to be able to maximize your engine, so to speak, your moving engine, and achieve these certain goals. And that's kind of where solo mode sounds like it kind of plays out.
Yes, exactly. But in addition to just having a certain goal in points that you have to reach through the combos you do, you also get a certain direction by each objective that you choose at the start of the solo game.
Mm-hmm. And then there's a negative resource, right? This thing called danger.
Yep. There are actually 5 resources. 3 of these are the basic resources, which is gems, lamps, and swords. Then we have the time resource, and finally the danger resource. Just quickly to cover time, what you do with time is that you can spend it as an action during your turn. You spend 2 time, and you can get any other resource from any card in your future, which in addition to giving you that extra resource, it can result in bringing mid-round more cards in your present, and then you can take advantage of those cards. So to return to the danger resource, what it does is that it is treated like a normal resource, even though it is actually a negative one. The more you gather of that resource, the more bribe you have to give to those who are chasing you at the end of each round in order to stay out of harm. So you can either choose to play the game with cards that provide you with less danger than others, but at the same time more fancy and powerful abilities will come if you risk more and get cards that give you also more danger.
All right, so that was A Thief's Fortune. It is a storytelling card drafting game mostly cards, so it's not like there's a huge overhead or a huge table presence when it comes to this game. It's quick, but it has some mechanical depth to it. So if that sounds good, the Kickstarter will be live and launching the day that we are dropping this podcast. So before we move on to talking about the Kickstarter project, maybe is there anything else that you feel like the people should know before they decide whether they want to back or not?
We believe we've done a good work combining mechanics in a very nice way. There are quite a few unique things you will discover in the game, and we try to bring them all together in wrap them around a very nice theme that will provide a very unique experience.
All right, so let's talk about the campaign. This is not the first campaign for A Thief's Fortune. If you recognize the name and you saw the campaign maybe a couple of months ago, yes, this is the same project. It was canceled at about 4 days in and 83% funding, which was something that made a couple of backers, a couple of forum posters kind of turn their heads a little bit. Maybe walk us through the process of why you decided to cancel that last pledge.
Sure. As a company, we've done so far 20 crowdfunding campaigns, which 19 of them were successful. And we had the unfortunate incident of being forced to cancel this last one and scheduling a relaunch. The main reasons we did that was, first of all, because the specific pace of the campaign was a little alarming for us. We weren't sure of what the next days would bring. If that slow pace was encountered after getting the project funded, we would feel better and probably continue with our schedule as it was. However, this slow pace was the first time we encountered such a slow pace before getting the project funded, which it appeared that it created a little bit of doubt in several backers' minds regarding what would be eventually offered as an extra, and why would someone want to back this project now instead of, for example, waiting for a retail version. We have a partner for most of our games, which is Stronghold Games for the United States, and so many people often prefer to just wait for a retail version of this game. So getting this slow pace before getting funded didn't really allow us to show what we had planned for the game, what extras we wanted to offer. And since we needed an entire brand new window to relaunch in case this space continued, we decided not to risk any further, cancel early, and make a new schedule for the game before its release at Essen.
Mm-hmm. So I read a couple of forum posts on BGG and also on the Kickstarter commenting page. I saw a point that somebody made, and it made me kind of curious. It's made by a poster named Daniel Kearns. He says, so a lot of campaigns they do well at the beginning and they do well at the end. So like there's that blast rush to get those pledges in, and campaigns tend to like kind of spike towards the end. So why not? I mean, I know there was like the 83% funding and everything, but like it would have probably reached 100 at the end is the kind of theory of it. Was that something that you just weren't sure would happen in this case?
The problem is that there was lots of traffic in the campaign, meaning that there were many new backers every day. However, there was a big number of people also canceling, and that led us to believe that the problem was that since we have lots of returning backers throughout our campaigns, led us to believe that maybe these backers are feeling uncomfortable with the fact that it's the fourth day of this campaign and yet it hasn't been funded, which was a first for us. So we not being able to pinpoint the exact reason for this slow pace, we decided to make a pause early on and then try to improve every aspect of this campaign, including, of course, the product itself. So in the relaunch, we will have several new things that we will be offering, several adjustments in order to ensure that the initial pace is what we are used to, and then move on from that point.
All right. So that must have been a difficult decision, and I imagine that dealing with negative comments was kind of a thing. Like, I saw that you were very active in a lot of these places, kind of patiently explaining your reasoning, everything. But you still just get the people that are kind of stuck in their ways and saying, you're just doing this because you weren't making enough profit, or like you're just trying to get more money or whatever it is, whatever negativity you're getting. Tell me a little bit about dealing with those people on the forums and everything.
Okay, first of all, something that is true for the entire industry is that when you are a company and creating a project, a game product, you have to understand that you can never, ever keep everyone happy. That's rule number one. Aside from that, we, as I explained also in the forums, because that was a response I gave, was that we are in fact a company, and making profit, wanting to make profit from the games we design and produce is not something we should feel bad about. However, even though I cannot blame anyone from being frustrated for a specific decision we made, we wanted everyone to understand that canceling and relaunching would actually benefit everyone. So in the end, everyone would get a better deal and a better product out of this, as we would reevaluate every aspect of the game, as I said. And this is people will be able to realize that once we relaunch, since we believe we improved the game as a product as well. To make sure that people feel that this is worth backing right now, instead of waiting later on. Even though we do hate exclusives, Kickstarter exclusives, and we've avoided them all this time, and we want to keep it this way. Which, you've probably already seen that several campaigns offer exclusive material, which gives the backer a good reason to support the project right now. But at the same time, to be honest, it does sort of forces that decision, because you feel like you will miss out on something that is exclusive.
Yeah, it creates I know it's kind of a controversial thing, but I mean, from my personal perspective, I just feel like the exclusives create buying out of fear and not out of happiness. And I just feel like that introduces kind of a problematic motivation where you're always kind of on the lookout for stuff. It's like you just kind of, you might jump into something that you haven't done due diligence on, as opposed to, really, kind of feeling good about your purchase,
Yeah, it is surely a weird situation. And the worst part is that that fear you described is not just for missing out and not being able to acquire this later, but actually knowing that you will be able to acquire it, but at a ridiculous price. Yes. So this is the reason we generally avoid Kickstarter exclusives, and we will avoid them this time as well. However, we will we will offer a very nice present to everyone that supports us in the first 2 days of the campaign. But this nice gift will also be available to get later on throughout the campaign at a small cost. And in both cases, of course, it is not something that is gameplay related, so that we don't want to, force someone to get this.
All right. So, I think that'll about cover it. That is A Thief's Fortune, and that is the Kickstarter campaign. It has launched today as we are launching this podcast as well. Should be up there for the full 30 days. Thank you so much for giving us a little bit of time and talking about the game and the project and that whole kind of behind the scenes stuff. I mean, I love that. I mean, how Kickstarters work and everything. But it sounds like, I think, maybe some forum posters forget this. I mean, you think like, okay, a company is putting out a thing and they're trying to make profit. A company, quote unquote, is really just a couple of people that are trying to do something. And, you're, real life human being just trying to put out the best product for everybody. So, I hope that message kind of gets out and people look at A Thief's Fortune and give it a fair chance.
Of course. Thank you very much for this interview. And it was my pleasure doing it.
And that's going to do it for another episode of the Every Night is Game Night preview series. Once again, thank you so much for joining us. We might have a couple more of these coming down the pipe, so please look forward to that. If you want to reach out to us, we are at ENGN_podcast. We also have a new Facebook group, which is getting members upon members as we speak, which is a really fun thing. We have the occasional post where we talk, and you guys, it's a community group, not a page, so you guys can participate, post whatever you want, pictures, discussion questions, all that kind of thing. Having a lot of fun with that. Check out the Geek List on BG. Every night is game night for the regular episodes and the preview series. Go ahead and throw some comments in the comment section. All of the contributions that you guys bring are really, really awesome, really, really welcome. I'm going to ask for this every single time. Just a quick favor from us. Please go ahead and rate us. iTunes, SoundCloud, Stitcher, wherever you can rate podcasts. 5 stars or however many stars you think we deserve. Throw a comment in there as well. We'd love to hear from you. So the lines of communication are totally open. Please interact with us. We want to bring you the best podcast we possibly can. We are right around the 100 episode mark. We are looking forward to bring you 100 more. Even better episodes than we had the last time. So, without further ado, this is Jason signing off. Later, everybody.